thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. This is our open forum, our first open forum of 2024. It's February 15th, which means it's Valentine's Day. We're going to be celebrating our favorite vulnerabilities. No, we really appreciate you guys joining us this week. We've got a fun open forum, and it's also my first one, so I'm going to get to meet you all, which I am excited about. But real quick, here's our quick agenda for today's open forum. We'll get into the quick introductions. Then we're going to throw it over to Bob for the 2023 Internet Exploitation Retrospective Report. Then we'll have Andrew, our chief architect, join us. And that's right. I got to update the slides. Apologies. And we'll have a sneak peek at new features and just really cool stuff that's been going on under, kind of behind the scenes. That's all coming to fruition right now. It's really exciting times. And then we'll also be keeping an eye out in the Zoom chat. We've got the webinar chat open. So if you guys have questions or things like that, please feel free to throw them in there, and we'll try to get to those when we can. Here's your distinguished guests for today. So that's myself, Sam, on the left. We've got Bob and Andrew. They both got their cams on here too on Zoom. So Bob was remarking how we don't look like our pictures, which is funny. So you can see us in real life in the Zoom too. Real quick introduction to me. My name is Sam. I'm a community manager. I've been a community manager for about 16 years or so. Started in the video game industry. I was like a old MMO nerd, played a bunch of online video games, and was running internet radio stations on Shoutcast and stuff like that. And that got me into doing stuff on the internet and becoming a community manager, and started in video games, went into startups, joined a small startup called Bug Crowd, and we grew their hacker community to over 150,000 people over about 5 years. That was tons of fun. And a little bit about me. I recently became a dad about 7 weeks ago, so that's been a fun adventure. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. The picture here is me holding some moss. I was really excited about the moss. In the Redwood Forest, we went to Muir Woods about a month or so ago here in the Bay Area. So that's a recent picture of me. And then a quick fun fact about me is I'm a huge Blink-182 fan. I'm a huge Blink nerd. I've seen them 17 times. I've met the guys and collect all sorts of things. So if you're like searching for something to talk to me about, you could probably just ask me about Blink, and I'll talk your ear off.
Sam, look at what my girlfriend got my mom for her birthday. This is
oh, nice.
This is a vinyl of the Mark, Tom, and Travis show.
That's quality album. So that's
one of their greatest.
Definitely. So, and also I just joined GreyNoise a couple months ago. And in that time, I've learned there's a fair amount of musicians in the company, including drummers. We have like a strangely like strong quotient of drummers in the company. So anyways, shout out to all of you guys. And I really appreciate the welcome. I'm super excited to work with the team here and obviously the community. Real quick, if you want to join us on our community platforms, we've got a couple of different places that you can hang out with us throughout the week or just anytime if you want to chat. We've got our Discord server. That's going to be a place where we're going to be hanging out, especially more coming up this year. After we do live streams like this, maybe we'll do Hangouts and Discord, things like that. So feel free to join us over there. And then our Slack, you can also join us over there. That's a great space if you find interesting vulnerabilities, have questions, want to connect with the team. Join us on Slack at greynoise.io/community. There's a link there. And I'll drop a link to the Discord in the Zoom chat in a second. Oh, thanks, Jordan. All right. Well, without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to Bob, who's going to talk to us about the 2023 Internet Exploitation Retrospective. Take it away, Bob.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm going to switch it over here. It's a blank screen for a second. It is, and you'll be seeing me turn my head this way because it's the way things work. And I got to get Zoom garbage. No, okay, right, things that way. That's good. I noticed, so a couple of things. Morris is going to be put on the spot in a little bit, but I also took a look in the chat. I recognize some non-GreyNoise names, and I'm going to have hopes that some of you that know me will actually have read the report and can answer some of the things. You'll see what I mean in a second. However, I did notice there's a fair number of noids on the thing, and I expect you all to type an answer to each and every one of the things. I'll be checking the chat logs after this. I'll get our Overwatch to give me the chat logs, because you better know the answer to some of the questions. You're all doomed. All right, so we are here to talk about the 2023 Mass Exploitation Report. And you know how hard it is to find black candy hearts? Very, very hard to find black candy hearts. But it does seem to be what GreyNoise does. So it's what we're going to go do. And I want to start off just by giving you some overall stats of like what was the year like for GreyNoise. Y'all, and this is just the good GNQL queries. You'd be surprised how horrible you all are, including myself, at typing GNQL, because there's a bunch more than this that were invalid. 17.3 million GNQL queries. That's about 30 every hour, I believe. So that was a lot. Y'all did a lot of searching. We were, at least from the crappy geolocation that the internet does, 195 countries touched us through our apps and the API. And this, according to everybody, this is the most searched for bad IP address. Go check it out. It doesn't look like it's anything special, but it is the thing that y'all were caring about that was in your logs or wherever out there. So keep an eye on this one. They're still active. They've been around a while. And boy, was it a year for tags. So as everyone knows, GreyNoise, we have tags. These are detections and other things that talk about IP addresses and what's happening with them on the internet. We managed to crank out 290 tags last year, which is more than we did the previous year. Just fun fact, right now, at this time last year, we were about cranking out about 0.6 tags a day, and we are now cranking out 1.6 tags a day. So I swear we have not chained people to their desks. Like, they do have lives and they do really other good work outside of work. But it's just been amazing to see just how much we have been able to do more with data, which I'll talk about in a second, and Andrew will probably mention a little bit too. Of those 290 tags, 67 were from the SysAkev catalog. If you don't know what SysAkev is, there's no way that you're watching this thing, because like you have to know what it is if you're watching this. And as you all know, we love Kev big time, so we try to track that really well. And we beat Kev around 63%, meet or beat Kev 63% of the time. We beat them around 54% of the time. So if anyone from Sysa happened to join late and you're on here, y'all need to catch up to us. And of those 290 tags, 242 were CVE based, either for checking something or for actually doing exploitation. So we kind of kept track with most of the things that are out there from, and you'll see what some of the actual weaknesses that we were tracking as well with this later. We have this new platform that we brag about a lot called SIFT. We have a tag webinar where like 1.5 of the things actually talked a lot about SIFT. If you haven't seen that, I do recommend going that. Daniel Grant, who is the progenitor of SIFT, also has a great webinar or two on it as well. That would be good if you want to know some of the data science behind it. So for the 6 months of the year that we had SIFT actually running in production, looking at stuff every single day, processed around 300 million web requests. Of those, we found 1.2 million things that were naughty, and roughly like 8.1 thousand like transactions that we kind of processed looking through those things, like clusters of transactions, things that look similar. If those words I just said to you don't make sense, read the report a little bit and go check out SIFT on our website. This is not what this is about, and there's not enough time to talk about it here. But that's all boring stats. Yeah, I'm not just going to read numbers off to you for this entire time. It's a silly thing to go do. I just wanted to brag a bit because we did a great, phenomenal job last year between all the teams at GreyNoise. We really hit it out of the park. But this is about the report and data in the report. And I had an expectation, like, I mean, I do I do some teaching as well, and I have an expectation that people read before we actually have a thing. And so I have an expectation that, Mr. Morris, you read the report, right?
I did.
Okay, we're going to find out. We're going to find out if all the noids read the report, and we're going to find out if anyone.
Now that we're here in this recorded area with spectators and onlookers.
Yeah. We'll see how well you do. So we're going to play a game of Jeopardy where I'm going to ask some questions. We're going to see how well you know the answers, and then we're going to just talk a little bit about the fight. And we're not going through the entire report because we don't have time for that. But I picked some highlights out there that I think will be fun for everybody. Mr. Morris and everybody else, a flaw in what software caused the breach of nearly 2,600 organizations and over 90 million humans last year? A flaw in what software? Which one?
Citrix.
Citrix. No. I really should have tried to find a way to do that. This would be Move It. Move It is, sorry, everyone. If you don't know what Move It is either, you are not in security, because it is the punching bag, one of the many punching bags last year of security. Really terrible thing. Basically, the gory details are the particular CVE was disclosed back in May. It had been exploited several weeks before the disclosure happened, so the attackers had a leg up on this thing.
I do remember, if I remember right, we actually saw exploitation of this.
When we looked back through our history, we actually did see it happening before there was a CVE assigned to it as well. Yeah, and Klopp has been doing, and a couple other ones, but Klopp primarily has been doing a lot of bad things, including all those organizations that you see, and this continues to happen. As a matter of fact, I ran some data all the way through now, since we can look at retro and forward-looking stuff. Cool bad thing is that we recently have now started to see the actual RCE attempt and Move It in our data in the fleet, which we weren't seeing for a while. This just means that there are other folks that have gotten access to do things and they figured how to go do things. This is not great. These vulns have a long lifetime. This is now part of the heartbeat of the internet, Kimber. It's part of the background noise of the internet. And this is just something to be aware of. Make sure your organizations are not restoring this from old patches, but I'm not going to try to be very prescriptive. Let Glenn type all the prescriptive stuff into the chat for you. All right, see if you can get this one, Mr. Morris. Which often exploited remote access technology got Comcast caught in the crosshairs?
Ooh.
Comcast was embarrassed big time, pants down, everything because of this. What was it?
Secure?
NetScaler.
That was the one that I just
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Let's remember this person is GreyNoise, everybody. Just letting you know that this. If there's the embodiment of GreyNoise, it's Morris, and he's failed twice now. I did deliberately click on the comprehensive security tab of that particular screen just to poke more fun at them because I mean it's Citrix. So, the CVE was disclosed on October 10th of 2023. It basically let the attackers do whatever they want, hijack authenticated sessions, bypassing everything. Is just really terrible. Multiple hacker groups locked, like ransomware is a big, we're gonna talk about ransomware later, but like ransomware is just a big thing with all of these things now. And they've gotten to the point where these are now just like slick automated attacks. So it's really something to be careful of. Citrix is always something to, I want to say put Citrix behind a VPN, but it's technically supposed to be one. So you got to layer your VPNs, mix it up. I don't know how you're going to protect yourself out there. And it's a Christmas tree. It's all over the place. There's almost no rest for this. This is such a boon for the attackers if they get it. And everyone restores Citrix from like backups because it breaks all the time, and they restore their battle configurations and they get hit again. This is just one of those perennial things that we're going to see for a while too. So this also is not great. This is the not great show. Like hopefully Morris is like the really great show because like this is the everything is horrible show. All right, Morris and everybody, which vendor could have really used a Band-Aid back in April of 2023?
That was so long ago.
Oh, it was the gift that kept on giving. Or the cut that kept on cutting.
It was Citrix Paper Cut.
Okay, well, Citrix doesn't make Paper Cut, but it was Paper Cut. Paper Cut actually makes Paper Cut.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So this is that.
My answer for everything moving on from now
is Citrix. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it makes. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good call. They're just perennially broken. Yeah. So if you don't know what Paper Cut is, again, you're not in security. They began exploiting this back in April of 2023. This is a remote authentication bypass, and you get system privileges, which means you own everything. This was terrible, and this is still going on. And one reason why this was terrible is that like no one knew what Paper Cut was in the security industry except for some researchers until this thing happened. Now we all know it's out there, and like everybody used it, and I got to be a victim because I live in Maine, and the state of Maine uses Paper Cut, and they lost all of my data and everybody else's data here. So yay, being in Maine. This is gonna have another really long tail. We were talking on one of these Stormwatch podcasts and video casts that we think this is gonna have a pretty long tail this year. I think we're gonna see a lot of orgs disclosing that they were hit with this thing, and as you can see, see like the attackers are still going after this. They're still checking. It's ripe for that, because this is also something where people just don't care, or they're going to restore from backup or put new ones on and not do the secure thing, because that's what the humans do that are out there. So we see everything out there. Okay, so hopefully you know this one. I can't believe my boss doesn't know anything. What spiffy new field did CISA add to Kev entries in 2023 to help defenders prioritize remediation efforts?
This was used by ransomware.
Whoa, wow. Look, you got one. You got one easy one. Hopefully everyone's got
I
one.
got the one that wasn't written by GreyNoise.
Yeah. I went nuts when this happened. I thought this was one of the best things in sliced bread. And what I did, instead of the giant chart that's in the report, I just reduced it to all of the Kev entries that were in 2023 that we have tags for, because there will not be a one-to-one, because we don't care about Chrome and all that kind of garbage. And I just kind of like I put it on here. I want to just highlight a couple of things on here. So for the first one, like look at this. We had coverage for CV. First of all, 2021 CV made it into Kev in 2023. Yay, that's great. And then we had coverage for it like way back when it first came out. So like, all right, GreyNoise researchers, Kev, CISA, get this, babe. Like, you really need to do a better job on that stuff. Apparently, we were also really both bad on this one, because this particular CV, I'm going to put it up, but 47986 happened to get out there, and we both kind of missed it. This is a really nice one though. Whereas like we actually had coverage like right at the time of the CVE and Kev. It took a long time as well too. So I'm not just busting on them to bust on them. It's just nice to know that we got it. One thing I want to do, there was a little bit of hope that we talked about in the report on this one. This is a great trend where when the CVE comes out and the CISA knows it's in ransomware and they have coverage for it and we have coverage for it, people get protected really fast, at least from the stuff that happens on the perimeter. Really excited about that. I'm hoping to see this trend continue even further as we get through this year. Actually, I'm hoping that no more CVs happen this year, but then we go out of business, so maybe I don't actually hope for that. Okay, all right. So what common devices found in almost every internet and enterprise network architecture had to lose its memory to flush out attackers?
The router switch.
Okay, so you just named a generic piece of technology. How about particular vendor?
A particular vendor, common device found in almost every internet and enterprise network architecture, had to lose its memory to flush out attackers.
You may have had a lot of meetings with this company recently.
Are they? Well, I can't.
Actually, you have a lot of meetings with a lot of people. Okay, so this would be
Cisco.
Yeah, the Cisco iOS one. So this is the one that was like all confusing back in the day. Just to recap it, on October 16th, Cisco disclosed a critical software privilege escalation vulnerability, CVSS base score of 10. Gotta love those. Unauthenticated attacker to create an account with like the basically access to everything on the Cisco box. The only saving grace is that implants did not survive a reboot, and this was like a couple weeks of just absolute mayhem and chaos. It was wonderful to watch from afar, since we don't run Cisco stuff. The one thing I want to call people to in that blog post that you saw up there, like just go to the blog and you'll find it. Remy, obviously Remy does awesome stuff. Remy did a great job dissecting this. This is the diagram. We're not going to go through here. I just wanted to show it. It just illustrates the chaos associated with this, of like which CV was doing what and what was the chain and how did this work and whatever. And then at one point Cisco didn't even they were like, well, this is patched, but it's still getting hit. And this was just an absolute debacle of a thing back in the day. We still do see every so often a couple pings for the scanning for this one. But honestly, like once you compromise the devices, you don't need to rescan the internet to do it. So I'm not surprised we don't see a lot of re-up scans for inventory on this one. So this one is actually maybe a trick question, but we'll see if you know it anyway. What was the most prolific CWE common weakness of the 45 found in the GreyNoise 2023 tag corpus? What is the worst CW? What is the worst software weakness?
Guessable credentials.
Hopefully people are guessing good ones on here. So there's a bunch of them. So there are 45 of them, and this is all the 45 that are out there. And CW 78, improper neutralization of special elements using OS command injection, was number one. number one of the weaknesses that we have associated with our tags. I have the eyes and the GR on the CW89 because SQL injection is 18 years old. It's almost old enough to drink. It's old enough to be in the military, which is I guess a good thing. I don't know. But this is something that like is just terrible. And the fact that we see these things in tags in like this year this past year is not great. So there's a lot on there, but these are things to watch out for. These are things that like make sure you've got coverage for detection wise in all the things that you've got in your enterprise. And with that, I want to say thank you all for playing. Thank you all for being here. And I want to hand it over to someone who's going to talk about a lot of really exciting things instead of really horrible things.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Bob. That was a really great presentation. I had a question for you before and I'd be curious about Andrew's thoughts too. Given that we're in such an interesting year, it's an election year and all this sort of stuff, do you guys have any sort of predictions about what you think the landscape will look like this year and how that might differ from maybe what we just saw or anything? Any just thoughts there, hot takes?
You first, Morris. Unless you want time to think.
No, I mean, I think that something we've never seen happen that I don't know if it's going to be this year or in the future is I think it's possible that some networks are going to start to disconnect from the internet based on sort of geography. I hope that doesn't happen. That's obviously not something that I think would be a good thing, but something that we did see in the United States and that we've seen in other areas of the internet is when there's a lot of domestic unrest, like just turning off cell towers or turning off, things like that, turning off cell phone service. And then we've seen in countries where there have been a lot of domestic issues like Iran during a lot of the protests last year. We've seen internet service be disconnected. We've also seen that in some countries in Africa that are experiencing domestic unrest. And so I think that's possible. I think if I were a betting man, just knowing about the low-hanging fruit of embedded systems, and so routers, router firmware, et cetera, and the sort of AI, like how good AI is at finding like low-hanging fruit bugs and then writing POCs for them, I would venture to guess that we're sitting on the cusp of seeing some pretty gnarly more OS command injections would be my guess, because that's just something that routers are just habitually very bad at. So if I were a betting man, I would say some trends and patterns that I expect to see over the next year are more areas disconnecting from the internet and more OS command injection vulnerabilities. You know them, you love them, they happen all the time. Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, so I got two things, and like we've touched on it like maybe once or twice in Stormwatch for some of them. But so the first one is that, and I don't do spook stuff, I don't do secret stuff, I don't have any of that stuff. So my take on this one comes from naivete, not because I'm not plugged into the spook scene. But I think that because CISA has highlighted, and not just them, but a number of other governments have highlighted critical infrastructure being targeted. I don't think they are. I've actually gone on record saying I don't think there's going to be massive attacks laid against critical infrastructure, mostly because it's not the things that are on the internet that you can do that with. However, because they've drawn attention to it, I think it's drawing a lot of other people's attention to it, and we're going to see a lot more weaknesses be discovered in these things, and people actually may be attempting to do those weaknesses. So I think because we've shown a spotlight on this as an industry, and specifically as CISA and some of the other agencies, it's going to cause more attention to be put on things that otherwise might have flown under the radar. But I think the second thing, this is not a political show, but because we're in such a really weird year in the U.S., there's the disinformation people are going to use everything they can at their disposal to try to shake things up. And one of the best ways to do that is, hey, the election site isn't reporting. Like, they're not hacking machines, they're hacking the reporting site. They're DOSing like the IIS-7 server that someplace in Minnesota still runs or whatever. And like that's just all of that just to cause reporting mayhem, so they can use that as it was rigged or whatever kind of a thing on there. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We're going to see a lot of poking around those tendrils before we actually see the actual things happen. So I think we're going to see that.
I think that's
awesome.
right.
Thank you guys for your thoughts there. Well, we're gonna throw it over to Andrew in just a second, but if you're watching this live right now in the webinar, just to remind you guys, we have the chat open. I see a bunch of you are already in there chatting away, and they were answering during Bob's Jeopardy session. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on there if you guys have questions during this next section. But yeah, I'm gonna throw it over to Andrew. We had some big news that just came out yesterday. If you haven't seen it already, we announced that Andrew is becoming our chief architect at GreyNoise, and that we brought in a CEO to help lead us on our next chapter here. But so I'll just throw it over to you, Andrew, if you want to chat a bit about that, and then also take us into what's to come on the platform and some really cool features that we've been working on.
Yeah, so we announced yesterday that we hired Ash Devada to be our CEO, which I just could not be more excited about. The company gets to a certain size, and you start doing more and more emails and meetings and things with around the HR and the staff and things like that. And you wake up one day and you're like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? And the gravitational draw for me towards technology and towards screwing with bad guys and towards looking at Honeypot data and ripping through the product and like wanting to talk to customers. Those are just the things that I love to do. Those are the things that I'm always going to love to do. And balancing profit and loss sheets and looking at balance sheets are just they don't really do it for me. So, and raising money and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, it's not my jam. So I set out to find the absolute best CEO that I could find, and I found this guy Ash, and I fell in love with him. So I've been spending the last couple months with him, and so my role changes now because now I get to do all the stuff that I love to do, and so I'm really jazzed about that. And Ash just joined us yesterday, but I've been spending the last few months with him, and I love this guy. So I couldn't be happier that he's on board. What this means for you guys is that you're actually probably going to be seeing even more from me, which is, take that however you want. Happy to answer any questions, though, abstractly about GreyNoise. If you have any questions about us, what we do, how we do it, anything like that, please feel free to raise your hand, drop them in the chat, whatever you want. Sam, if you can keep an eye on that for me, that'd be awesome. Appreciate it. So like big themes for us in the future are more and more, it feels like we're starting to understand that threat intelligence is like 3 rats in a trench coat. I think that we're seeing this sort of, we're at this cool inflection point where even though we've got a bunch of industries built around certain pieces of security, we've got fraud, vulnerability intelligence, perimeter security, threat intelligence, things like that. Something that I'm actually really starting to come around on is that it feels like the severity of vulnerabilities atomically, just from the software or how bad the bug is, the risk is you can't really do it just based on how bad the bug is. It feels like, there's another part of the equation that people really need to be looking at. And one of those is like, how much of this is deployed on the internet? And then the other one is, well, how is our adversaries actually exploiting it, right? Like if you've got a super bad bug on your perimeter, that nobody is exploiting, then it's actually not as bad as a less bad bug that everyone is exploiting and that for a fact is going to get exploited for you. So something that I'm excited to see is, we're going to start taking, I think moving forward, we're going to try to start taking a little bit more into account around how deployed a vulnerability is and whether or not it's something that you're running to try to figure out, make the experience better for our customers. And that's nothing we have roadmap now. I think that's just high level trend of what's been on my mind. Other stuff that we've got is we've had customers and users and partners for a long time telling us that they wanted to be able to run GreyNoise sensors so that their data could be part of the solution here, get some of the data that they have, maybe use some excess IP space. And so that's something that I'm excited to show you guys here now. I'll show you me deploying my own GreyNoise sensor, and it's going to be a good time. And then I wanted to show you guys SIFT for just a moment, something that Bob, Daniel Grant, and the entire team have put a lot of effort into, and it's just delivering some absolutely insane results. And at the end of this quarter, so whatever, 6 weeks from now, sensors and SIFTs are going to be talking to each other. And so that means that running your own GreyNoise sensor could actually get data into SIFT, and SIFT is like actually the coolest thing I've seen since sliced bread. So I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna show it to you guys. So here real quick, and then again, please, if you guys have any questions about anything, do not hesitate to ask them. So I've shared my screen. Sam, can you give me a thumbs up that it's coming through?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. So here's GreyNoise yet again. You know it, you love it. We've got this new smart search right here, which I'm sure you've seen by now, but now we've got basically some cool recommendations where it's like, hey, show me things that match this criteria, and it'll actually do the search for you automatically. I just hit one. Let's see. Yeah, show me everyone who's doing RDP crawler. That's awesome. We've even got some that are cool, like, hey, let me see anyone who's scanning for Siemens SCADA devices that is not coming from known benign sources. So we've got some really cool ways of basically just making it easier to show you all the opportunities. Oh, that's funny. It's literally all coming out of China. And so you see some interesting new use cases here at the very onset. But let's see how noisy the internet is today. Oh my God, it's so noisy. Bob, why is it so noisy?
Because some unknown individuals or groups, or maybe just one person that has access to some very high powered internet infrastructure, is doing what we call a noise storm. And that noise storm is basically a bunch of TCP packets without a three-way handshake that are just blasting the entire internet, doing a lot of really bad things, and we're catching all of it. And actually, but I need to give a shout out. I did it already internally, but I want to do it in public over here because we have absorbed this. It's amazing to see the engineering team's feats on this one. In maybe 5 years ago, we would have been taken down by this thing completely. This is so much more traffic than we ever see on any basis, though, and it's literally touched every single sensor that we have at GreyNoise multiple times.
Yeah, so the internet seems to be getting blanketed by some spoofed traffic. Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on this on a recorded call too much beyond that, but it is the kind of thing that's an interesting phenomenon that we have been seeing since January 3rd, 2020. Look that day up. Okay, I am going to show you guys how easy it is to deploy a GreyNoise sensor. So I've got here on my side, I've got a bunch of GreyNoise sensors that are already deployed here. So let's say that there's some new Avanti exploitation going on, like as if it's a day that ends in Y, and I want to deploy something that looks like an Avanti sensor, right? So here on my side, I'm just going to grab this command here. I'm going to SSH into, this is a vanilla DigitalOcean box that I just spun up. And so I just SSH'd into it here. I'll make sure my font's nice and big so we can all look at it. And cool, we've got me on a relatively modern Ubuntu server. I'm going to paste in that command. We've got our sick ASCII art here. And what's going on under the hood right now is that essentially this machine isn't really installing anything. It's just running a bunch of checks. It does install some IP tables persistent so that it can survive a reboot. I think it installs JQ, and I think it installs WireGuard tools. But all that's happening here under the hood is that we're establishing a WireGuard VPN tunnel back with GreyNoise's data center. And then we're doing some IP tables kung fu to essentially forward everything on layers 3 and above all the way through that WireGuard tunnel. So we can make this thing basically throw its voice, right? We can turn this thing into a ventriloquist dummy. So once this is done, then cool, my SSH port is now 62209, just in case I want to get back into it and not go through the tunnel. And let's hop back over here, and I'm going to refresh. And let's see, we've got now a new sensor. Something new here says Serene Numbat. It is at this IP address, and it is running the default persona, which is essentially nothing. So cool. Let me see what this thing looks like on the internet right now. So here, I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to Nmap this guy real quick. And my guess is that it's going to come back with nothing because the persona is not running yet. So we've got a GreyNoise sensor. It's forwarding traffic, but we don't want to change anybody's networks without them being the ones to actually set it off. We don't want to make you look like something vulnerable if that's not what your jam is. So scanning this here right now, all ports are filtered. Great, it makes sense. So now I'm going to hop back over here to this guy. And what do you guys want to see it look like? I'm looking in the chat. We've got a bunch of options in here. Hikvision. All right, hang on. I'm gonna keep scrolling so you guys can see all these bad boys. But we've built a bunch of personas for these, and a lot of these personas are shallow clones, which means that we're essentially just running, web services that match all of the existing sort of headers and fingerprints, etc. But we do have some high interaction sensors in here as well, which are actual copies of the real software that's actually running that can actually be compromised. So let's see. Where was my Hikvision? Yeah, Hikvision IP camera, sure. So I'm going to make my sensor look like a Hikvision camera by just changing it right here in this menu. And so then if I grab this IP address here, now this is going to take just a minute or two because in the background, like I said, we're actually spinning up the infrastructure and we're pointing the gateway over to talk to this thing. So traffic is now going to be routed all the way through this. So let's see. If I scan this guy again, my guess is that he's not going to be up yet because it's going to take just a few more minutes than that. But let's see. Okay, we've got some filtered ports and other ports are closed. I bet if I give it another second here, it's going to come back. And fun fact for you guys, we had to go back to the drawing board on our on which personas we allow, because one of the first high interaction personas that we rolled out was a SSH service with guessable credentials, and it got compromised very quickly because the internet's very noisy. And then it started scanning and crawling and attacking other devices on the internet. And then it started attacking other GreyNoise sensors. So GreyNoise accidentally GreyNoised GreyNoise, which was pretty funny. Scanning this box again, it looks like we've got some open ports here now. It's going to do a little cheeky little version scan on there. And it looks like we've got a SSH service. We've got an HTTP service. Let's do it with a version check and let's see what we are running. In the meantime, let me see if let's see what I can check up here. So I think this by default actually goes to let's see, it seems like we want to, yeah, there we go. I've got myself a Hikvision camera that just loaded up. And so now I've got my sensor can be a Hikvision camera. We can catch credentials. We can do all these things. And if I go back and if I change it, let's just change it again. Let's change it to something else. How about could do a Confluence server. I'm going to do an Avanti Connect Secure. So I'm going to switch it over to that. While this is changing over here on that side. Oh, and let me look at my Nmap output. Let's see how believable this looks. Yeah, great.
Why are you kicking Avanti? Like, we kick them enough already. What are you doing?
You're right. I'm going to show you guys SIFT. So this is the cool internal version of SIFT, which is not 7 days behind. And it is the kind that we use internally more responsibly because we don't necessarily want to just be blasting end days out to all of our to everybody who uses it. Now, SIFT is the new it's the new way that we identify basically net new traffic patterns in GreyNoise data. So you can see basically the way that this works at a high level is that we're clustering similar payloads together, and anything that we've never seen before. So SIFT has a perfect memory. It's not perfect at everything, but it absolutely has a perfect memory. And so what we're doing is we're saying, hey, anything that I've never seen before, surface it to me, and then annotate what that data is. So take a guess at what these payloads are, and then rank it how big of a deal it is and write a little summary of it. And then even maybe write some rules that'll help us, get started on tracking it down. So the very first one that we've got for Valentine's Day or for yesterday's SIFT is Java deserialization exploit and HTTP payload. looking over here, and it looks like it got this one exactly right, right? This is pretty obviously a Java deserialization bug. And we can see, yeah, this is where it's W getting a malicious payload. And then we scroll down and we've got a little analysis of it. This HTTP payload attempts to exploit a vulnerability in Oracle's web service, blah, 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 blah. And then we've even got our internal SQL, and we've got a Suricata starter signature down here for detecting this. And then we've got, hey, these are the four payloads that we've seen, and the 4 IPs we've seen slinging this, as well as some size distributions. I think Bob did this part. I love it. And then we've got the tags that we've seen that we've already applied for this this given IP address. So, or that we've seen for the ones that we've seen up above. So this is just one of the 74 SIFTs that we've seen today. If we keep going over more deserialization bugs, yeah, these are again, these are payloads or attacks that we've like never seen before. And here's a new log4j payload. Let's see if this one actually doesn't look like log4j. Maybe it is. But yeah, so we've seen, oh, it doesn't say log4j. It says log injection. That's my bad. SIFT was right. I was wrong. We've got, hey, it thinks, hey, maybe this is a new shell shock. I'm looking at it. It's definitely shell shock. So this is definitely log4j. Yeah.
And Ghosty, what about Ghosty Snark? Look at it's got some.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, we've even got Ghosty down here making a snarky remark. Not fetching much coffee with that Java exploit, are we? Zing. So, anyways, why is this cool? Why is this interesting? Well, for a long time, the tags that you guys have seen have been the fruit of Bob and his team's just the labor of a tremendous amount of manual data exploration and manual testing. And we've done a lot of stuff to really try to make that data more manageable for us, to try to make it more consumable, just easier for us to stay on top of. But like, GreyNoise is processing almost 1 billion events every day. And so that's a lot of traffic. And so getting through it manually is really tough. And machines are just better than us at some things. And it turns out that in this case, you know, detecting initial access or initial access exploitation is something that the machine is actually pretty good at. So we still have to beat the machine into submission to have it get right and get correct and act the way that we want it to act and write correct analyses. Interesting use of Java's dynamic proxy and process builder to perform what would be rather destructive constructive activities on the targeted server. This attack isn't quite subtle, and it's like trying to use a bulldozer to break into a glass store. Good one. So anyways, this is the sort of the peek into the future of what new GreyNoise sensors are going to be collecting and the type of analysis that it's going to be doing. So what's really cool is that, you know, if you want to get on GreyNoise sensors, if you want to start working in early access or partnering with us to be a development customer on this, the sensors that, let's see if actually now that I come back here, if I forgot to check this again. Cool, we've got an Avanti connector code. When you run your own GreyNoise sensors now, any net new traffic patterns, net new exploits, or net new anything that happens is this stuff is actually going to be going into SIFT, and you can actually have your own SIFT for what's happening to your network specifically that we're not seeing happen anywhere else. So this is going to be really interesting for finding targeted attacks and new exploitation, so that you can make sure that your the rest of your organization is secure against it. Now, the fundamental sort of thing that we're taking into approach on this is just that attackers use automation the exact same way that defenders do. So if you're going to see an attack that, if you see an attack in your GreyNoise sensor, then there's a very good chance that that same attack is going to be happening to the rest of your network. So this is something that I'm really excited about. I'm happy to answer any questions about them. I'm glad Bob is here, because I wouldn't be able to answer many good questions about SIFT, because it's literally more complicated than what my soft brain can understand. But yeah, just wanted to, Sam, I'll turn it back over to you if we have any questions or anything like that.
Yeah, obviously, if you're watching this live right now in the webinar, throw questions into the chat. We had one that came in a little while ago while you were just starting to talk about sensors. It's from Tor. Can you talk about how we're approaching like the free access, and then there's like obviously paid customers of GreyNoise and that have different access? Can you speak to how we're approaching that with these sensors and how that'll kind of work out?
Yeah, so we've got to do a lot around, this is a lot harder for us to how do I even say this? The work that we need to do around this is that we have to make sure that we've figured out the cost model for how we can afford to do this for our free users as well. Initially, we're not offering sensors for free users, but if you get in touch with us, like not generally available, if you get in touch with us, if you reach out and if you want to work with us as like a development partner or something like that, we would love to get you the ability to run your own GreyNoise sensors. I think the game plan, and I don't know if we have anybody from the product team here on the call, but I think the game plan is to eventually allow free users to at least run one GreyNoise sensor. And it's possible that we might be able to do more than that. But yeah, I mean, a big thing here is that we want people to deploy sensors. Like we want our free users to do that. The two things that we have to do before that, the work that we have to do at GreyNoise before that can happen, and for sensors to be generally available for all of our free users, is that we have to make sure that we've got them secured so that it's not the kind of thing that can introduce risk to us or to you. And then the second piece of it is really just that we have to make sure that the maths out so that we can actually afford to do it. And there's some anti-abuse stuff that we've got to take care of as well. As you can see with today's noise storm, things can happen. The internet is a really wacky place, and we don't want to have, people ripping their own GreyNoise sensors and then using that for some kind of abuse. And so there's a lot of like sandy edges we've got to sand off to make sure that we've got it straightened out before we can allow our free users to deploy their own GreyNoise sensors. But again, abstractly, yeah, we'd absolutely love to do that. And so get in touch with us and we can make it happen.
Yeah, I'll just add on there. We're definitely, building in public, so to speak. We've been talking about these features for a little while now at GreyNoise, and we're still working out some of the details. So we appreciate folks giving us some space to kind of work out some of these details and figure out how we can best roll all these things out. We had a question from Dusty, just to help, asking you to essentially kind of clarify what you mean by dev partners.
Oh yeah, I mean, so we've got basically a sort of standard process where what we want to do is we want to understand what your pains are that we think that sensors might solve for you, and just a much more like white glove sort of experience with you to make sure we can capture bugs, make sure that that we have the functionality that you're looking for, and make sure that we're able to get you the data that you're looking for sort of as soon as humanly possible, and that we don't, and we want to just do that much more closely with you guys. So yeah, dev partners is in this case, a company can do it, or even an individual researcher who says, hey, I have this problem that I'd like to solve. I have this kind of attack that I'm trying to, get more insight onto. I have a region that I'm trying to get some visibility of, those kinds of things. And then we would just link you up with one of the product managers to make sure that we're able to do that right. So that's what a dev partner means in this case. Cool.
Yeah, and if you kind of fit that latter bucket, like the researcher side, community side, email us at community@greynoise.io, and I'll keep an eye out for you there. We had a question from Eli about, are we looking for partners in geolocation services?
I don't know exactly what you mean. So we have a partnership right now with a company called IP Info that we use to do that does all of our geo enrichments and everything like that. We have been working with them for a long time, and we're really happy with the service that we've been getting from them. From my perspective, I think they're actually one of the best. But we're always looking for more partners so that we can try to figure out something. If you're looking for something more accurate, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, love to do a little bake off.
Definitely. We'll keep an eye out for more questions that might come in. Oops, sorry, Andrew. Sorry to step on you there.
You're good.
Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, throw them in. Just kind of give you guys, if you're watching this, like I said, on the webinar or on YouTube, we're going to have more things to come this year. Obviously, we're just at the beginning of the year, and we're working on our plans for the rest of the year. So we'll have more events. We're going to have opportunities to give technical talks and stuff like that. So if you're a member of our community or a customer of ours and you're doing really cool stuff with GreyNoise and you want to show it off, stay tuned. I'm going to be giving you more opportunities to do that. Let's see. We had Tor had another comment. Let's see.
Oh, I see this one. Yes. The question is sometimes the IP is not shown. Is there any other plans on partnering with IP reputation-based services? So like, this is something that is like, it's tough for me to, I'm going to answer this a little bit philosophically. So IP reputation is something that takes a lot of different factors into consideration. And it's also it's also a concept that is atomically really, really hard to do, to like boil an IP address down to just a reputation. There is a lot, it can be done. Lots of people have tried to do it. At GreyNoise, we don't really harbor a lot of passion about overall IP reputation. We're much more purpose-driven around whether we've seen something in our sensors or not. And so if you ever look up an IP address and it doesn't come back in GreyNoise, that's just because we've never seen it. It doesn't mean that it's not bad. It doesn't mean that it has a high or a low reputation. It really just means that it's probably never scanned the internet or attempted to exploit devices on the internet. So what we want is we want to try to make our data as accessible in the places where it's going to make the most sense as possible. We want to make sure that everything is always as clearly documented for where our data like makes sense and where it doesn't. So if you ever look up an IP address and it doesn't come back in GreyNoise, that's not because it has a high reputation or a low reputation. It just means that we've never seen it scan the internet, or it's not scanning the internet right now or in the last 90 days. So anyways, hopefully that's helpful.
Awesome. Well, we're coming up on the last few minutes of our open forum. So we really appreciate you all that have joined us and been hanging out with us this afternoon. We'll get into the last couple questions, and I think I'm going to throw a question at the panelists before we go. But let's see. We had another question from Eli Manning. Isn't that a football player?
That's what I said.
Eli says, can you give some insight into how many sensors you guys run?
Thousands.
Nice.
And the number changes because we have them go up and down. We do that kind of intentionally. There's also like, it also sort of depends on how you want to quantify sensors. We have some sensors that are like one machine that have like 1,000 IPs. And then we have a bunch of tiny little itty bitty machines that have one IP. So the point is we have thousands.
That's funny. Whitney says, what is your cloud bill?
It's big. Our engineering team is actually insanely good at making it way smaller than you would think. So to that end, it's relatively small, but it's big. It's our biggest cost. So
yeah, actually, for everyone out there that doesn't know this, because I don't think they're making it that obvious. Like Amazon now charges for IP address space. It's really stupid. It's like such a greedy SOB thing to do. And of course, now they're going to charge us more because I said that. But yeah, so just be careful. Like, yeah, these costs can go really, really way up. And like, even like when these snowstorms happen, like S3 bucket, oh yeah, this is insane. It's just crazy.
Eli Manning, again, big fan of your work. Your brother's better than you though. I'm sorry. How are you? Hang on. Do I use? Yeah, I use IRC. I don't really get on anymore, but I was a Freenode man. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
Long time IRC user.
Freenode, FNet. I was just thinking about all the IRC servers from back in the day. Let's see. Joseph.
Eli, I know who you are. Wait, real quick. How are you balancing doing what you do very well with the temptation to do more? Focus, man. It's like there is no answer other than like number one, when we do things, we like to play to win. So we don't want to do something if we're not uniquely good at doing it, right? And if we're not uniquely positioned to do it. But then the other one is, I don't know, do fewer things, do them better. Labs team does a lot of stuff really often that is like really cool, insane technology. And we try to implement as many of those things as we possibly can. But in terms of like what the full product offers and like what we throw the weight behind from the engineering and the product teams, there's a lot of vendors out there that do a lot of things. And so we'd rather be one of the ones that does something and does it really well. And we want to just really focus on kind of like delivering on that customer promise more than anything. Focus, right? Focus is about saying no.
Definitely.
It's actually really humorous hearing you talk about focus. That's all I'm going to say.
Isn't it?
It's really, really funny. It's really funny.
It is indeed.
Well, I'm going to throw out a last question to you guys both. Since we've been talking about kind of the future, what's to come at the company, and we've been talking a lot about our really cool technology. I was also thinking about Andrew and the announcement of moving into the chief architect role. You specifically mentioned AI and how that's really changed the landscape, which I thought was really interesting that you specifically mentioned that. I think it acknowledges like the opportunity and the challenge there with that technology. Could you just, I know that it's a huge can of worms right there and we've only got a few minutes, but I'd be curious if you just kind of share some thoughts there on why did you like call that out specifically?
I called it out specifically because it's there's like 3 areas of uncertainty or 3 opportunities that I can see that are the big buckets of how AI is going to change stuff specifically for us at GreyNoise. But my gut instinct is that AI is going to actually change things quite a bit, just not in the ways that we would have expected 10, 15, 20 years ago. I remember when I was younger, everyone would say, don't learn how to, like being a truck driver or being a cashier or being something like being a pilot, being a chef. Like those are things that are all going to be replaced by machines and AI. And then the reality of it is that Gen AI came up and it was actually much more replacing like the function of doing more white collar work of like, being a lawyer, being a programmer, stuff like that. So it happened in like the exact opposite way than anybody expected, which I think is really interesting. Catches us a little bit more off guard. The 3 big areas that I can see that AI affect us a lot at GreyNoise is number 1, like attackers are going to start using AI. So nothing's going to fundamentally change. It's just that they're probably going to do the things that they're already doing, but more of it and faster and at a larger scale. And so that's like one thing over here. So we have to make sure that we're ready to turn on a dime of like what that's actually going to look like in the future. And it's possible that that's driving some of why we've seen so many new exploits that are happening now. I mean, I have no idea. I can't see what's going on in the attackers' machines. The second thing is thinking about AI in our products, like the things like SIFT, right? Like how we actually use AI to make our product better for our customers. And then the last thing, and something that I'm a little bit more well-positioned to do, just having been at the company for so long, is that it's really thinking about AI across like the corporate operations, like how we actually work together at GreyNoise. Like how can we use AI to make us better at our job and to make our jobs better, to make us collaborate better together across the organization. And so those are the 3 sort of big areas that I can see like opportunities for some AI strategy. What we don't know is what's going to break and what's going to just necessarily, what won't work and where it's going to be the most useful and valuable. But my instinct is just that AI does actually change quite a bit. But the wrong thing to do is to try to just act like it's not happening or ignore it. The right thing to do is to lean into the future and to try to understand how it can give us all superpowers. And so that's something that I'm particularly excited about.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's such an interesting space that we're in because we're going to be using it to help us. But then I also think it's interesting when you're talking about it, is it's how AI could be used on the adversarial side of things, and so we have to be creative and smart on the other side, on the defense side. So, but this was a really great session. I really appreciate you, Andrew and Bob, hanging out with us today. This is my first open forum, and it's been a real honor to have two legends on the show for our first 2024 open forum. I'm going to share my screen real quick just to encourage everyone in the audience to join us over on Discord or on the Slack server. It's a great way to connect with the members of our team and also just the broader GreyNoise community. You can go to greynoise.io/community. There's a join our community section down the page that has a link to Slack. Also put these links in the YouTube description if you're watching this on YouTube. But we just want to thank everyone who's joined us today. It's been really great to connect with you all. It's been a minute since we've done an open forum, and we're super excited about what's to come. So thanks for watching. We'll see you all in the next one, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, everyone.
See you, folks. Thanks again for coming.